So, the topic I have in mind right now is how to cultivate loving awareness, let go of anger and resentment, and possibly going into also how to tap into a frequency of love that allows you to dissolve negative feelings that you have maybe towards other people, towards yourself. It's just like kind of a general overview. Um, there was something else that I wanted to talk about with this too, but I guess we'll move into it. I know that these topics generally change a lot during the videos anyways. So, energy transfer, that was the other thing. Talking about how when when two people have a sexual relationship with each other, they share energy with each other. How when you think about somebody, you're pulling energy to you. When you think about something, you're pulling energy to you. And then talking about also how the interrelationship between your mind and your environment around you, and your mind's environment and its kind of ability to pull energy towards it. Um, it's all about what you choose to identify with. So when you start to experience these feelings flowing through you, you have to recognize, and this is particularly with anger, because I've gotten really good at being able to help myself to transmute anger into love. And it all comes with awareness, and it comes with a understanding and a knowledge of what's going on when you're experiencing that. So a lot of times, people who experience a lot of emotions that are negative are generally picking up a lot of things from their environment, and they're picking up from a lot of people around them as well. And a lot of times they're also surrounded by people who are angry and upset all the time, and generally just see that as being a norm, if that makes any sense. So what happens is that being in that environment for their entire lives, they start to pick that up as being a normal state of being, and they don't recognize that they can actually start to separate their kind of consciousness away from that vibrational frequency by seeing what that vibrational frequency is. So all of this stuff is expression of energy. That's what it is. So going back into the chakras, if you want to talk about it, anger is a sacral and solar plexus expression of energy. And what happens is that energy comes up, and it has no other way of being expressed other than by flowing out through these lower areas. This is why I say that when you open your heart, what happens is that you have these floods of emotion that come through, and sadness, happiness, all the depression, anger, all this stuff is transmuted into love through that energy. But the only way to make it through there is to break through this type of barrier. And the barrier is with your own mind, and it's with your own body and your own self. And what the barrier is the mind's want or desire to cling on to specific feelings, because the intellect tries to tell you logically or rationally that those feelings are justified. You have to get to a point where you recognize that you don't want to feel angry anymore because of the fact that you just don't want to feel angry. And through understanding that and using your free will, what you do is you choose to release the anger, not because logically it is the right thing to do logically, because logically your mind's going to continue looping over and over again, telling you to experience that anger because this person told you to, or because this person did this to you, or this person did that to you, or this thing happened, or whatever. And all that stuff is loops. It's all your mind taking you on mind trips. And those mind trips are not freeing you from anything. They're actually binding you and trapping you. And you have to recognize that you are being bound and trapped through these expressions of emotions. And the only way to break free from that bind is to let go of the need to express those emotions in that negative way. That's how you do it. You have to literally just recognize that you have the ability to be like, I choose not to feel angry just because it feels better to feel positive. That's it. It literally just feels better to feel positive. And it gets to a point where you hold so much tension and so much stuff inside of you that if you don't release it, then what happens is that you dissolve, you disintegrate, meaning your body will literally start to break down and start to attack its own self. and then you'll get diseases, you'll get cancer, you'll get all these different kinds of like negative things happening inside of you because it's a stagnation of energy. And then that energy literally, think about it like this. Cancerous growth is when cells are growing out of control and they keep going and they keep growing. And that's the same thing that happens in the mind with anger, is that you think one specific thought form and then you just keep recycling that thought form over and over again, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. And since it's centered in the sacral chakra, a lot of times the cancer happens here in this area with anger. And you see what I'm saying? Cancer of the heart or the breast cancer is because of the heart chakra, because there's a negative growth inside of the heart chakra that's keeping the heart chakra closed. So breast cancer happens. Throat cancer happens from over excessive use of the you see what I'm saying? Like these are all, they're all correlative. So diseases of the body are also correlative with diseases of the mind, and diseases of the mind are correlative with continuous thought patterns that are being redirected towards things that aren't serving you. And you have to recognize that you have to shift your perspective from the logical intellect into the heart. And what I mean by the heart is your feelings. You have to go with what feels good to you. It's not logical. It's not logical. Like your logical mind's going to try to convince you over and over and over again that you need to be angry or you need to be sad or you need to be whatever. You have to recognize that that is the trap, literally. As soon as you identify with being angry, then you become the angry person. You become the angry person. Even though you know inside of you, yourself does not want to be angry, you still are angry and you wonder why. And then you blame yourself and then you shame yourself and then you become more angry at yourself because of the fact, and then you start projecting anger outward, and then the anger starts to manifest outward and then be projected back at you, and then you think that the world is an angry place, or you think the world is a sad place or a depressive place or an anxious place. You see what I'm saying? All of the feelings that you have inside of yourself are being projected outward all the time. They're always continuously being projected outward. So whatever you feel inside of yourself is what you're going to see in the external world. And what you have to do is recognize that, and when you change these things in yourself, it's not going to immediately change in your external world. What happens is that you have to almost prove to yourself through shifting your perspective and seeing. You literally have to keep redirecting your attention back to love. That's what you have to do. And what love would be, say, I got a comment earlier talking about how somebody was going through a breakup and that they felt really angry, and they recognized that that anger that they were feeling was actually a projection of the other person. The other person was projecting this anger onto them. They were accepting that anger, and they were accepting that kind of energy of the negative energy that was being projected towards them, and then they were thinking that that was theirs, when in reality it was just it was a flowing of energy that was going through them. And if they chose not to cling on to that energy, then it would just flow through them, and then it would come out as a deep love or compassion for that other person. But they choose to keep using their mind to go into the past, into the negative events that happen, and they keep replaying these events over and over and over again in their mind, and that causes them to be stuck inside of the negative kind of consequences of that negative event. The way that you release that, and you actually release the karma for yourself and for the other person when this happens, is that you have to find or cultivate a loving awareness of that situation. So you have to be able to look back and recognize that this person is going through their own karma, and they're just projecting all of their insecurities, anxieties, and feelings onto you. You do not have to accept that. As soon as you're aware of what's happening, then you recognize that you can actually hold compassion for that person, and they may not be like, they may be really mean and they may do all this stuff to try to hurt you, but you still hold compassion for them because you recognize that that's just them playing out their karma. That's just them. Literally, they're in so much pain inside of themselves that they feel the need to project that pain outward into the world everywhere. It's not just you. It's literally everybody that they do it with, not just you. So you're not special in that regard, but like what I mean by that is that that these people are in so much pain, and then when people project anger or kind of madness or sadness or anything like that out into the world, it's because they're in pain, and then they feel the need to project that outward so that they can feel compassion from other people. But they never get the compassion from other people because the other people just take on that energy, and then they feel the same energy as the other person because they're deeply intimately connected with that person. And this even happens with people on the side of the road. Like, say somebody's having road rage, and then they project that energy onto the other person, and then all of a sudden the other person's angry too, and then there's a fight that goes on. You see what I mean? Like, once you start to see the energy play and the energy transfers, then you can actually disconnect yourself from those streams of energy and not get caught up by those kind of rivers of energy, if that makes any sense. You see all this stuff as being flow, and you choose the flow that you want to sit in. And this is how you sit in your heart chakra as well, as you recognize that you can just choose to jump over to a different flow. And then when you choose to jump over into a different flow, what happens is that you end up actually experiencing a different reality. You experience yourself as being literally separate from that flow, from the other flow, enough to where you can look at it from a perspective that is not caught up in the drama of whatever is happening. Even if it's something that just flared up like huge in front of your face, you can get so detached, and it's not detached in a negative way either. It's detached in a positive way, because it's very, very loving. It's like this experience of understanding that the other person is in a whole lot of pain, and then just feeling this loving compassion for them because of the fact that you know what that pain is like, and you've been there before, but you also recognize that you don't want to take on that pain. So you see the pain, but you recognize it's their pain and it's not your pain. And by seeing that and loving them too, then you can actually help them to dissolve the pain if they're ready to do that. If they're not ready to do that, then just distance yourself away from them, and it's okay. Meaning, like, just don't even, you see, okay, any energy that you feed somebody is energy that you're feeding them. So what I mean by that is, if you think about somebody and you project hatred to them, then you're actually feeding them negative energy. Negative energy and positive energy are two of the same thing. So when you feed somebody negative energy, you're feeding them energy. The thing that you need to do, if you have somebody that you hate or you don't like or anything like that, you need to disconnect your energy from them completely, which means don't think about them at all. So when their energy comes up into your vibrational field, what you do is you say, oh, this is that person's energy. I choose to redirect my attention away from this because I understand that that person is somebody that I don't want to think about, and I don't want to send any energy to this person. And like, even Osho talks about this. He talks about how I want people to either love or hate me, but if they ignore me, then that's something I don't like. And the reason is because the ignoring of that other person is the actual most powerful thing that you can do. It takes the power away from them because you stop projecting power onto them. As soon as you ignore them completely, it's almost as if they don't exist. And when that happens, then they start trying to flare themselves up more and more in order to show that they exist. You see what I'm saying? And then you just keep disconnecting your energy from them over and over again. And eventually they'll decide to stop sending energy to you, and they'll move on to something else. And they'll go find somebody else who is more resonant with their frequency of anger or sadness or depression or whatever. And this is very important, very powerful information. It's really not as difficult as you think it would be. You just have to become aware of the fact of what you want to sit in and how to redirect your attention into what it is that you want to sit in. I can go much, much more deep into this, but I just wanted to kind of put this out there as like a general understanding really quick. For one, to answer that comment that I had, but also to kind of show how to direct yourself away from other people's energies so that you can sit in a vibration and understand what your vibration really is. You have to recognize that as soon as you start thinking about another person, you are then sending them energy. As soon as you start thinking about the other person, you're actually tapping into their frequency and then pulling their energy to you, and then you're experiencing their energy. So if you're thinking about somebody and it's making you feel uncomfortable, then stop thinking about them, and then you'll stop feeling uncomfortable. Literally. And it's like your mind's going to be like, oh no, I need to think about them because I hate them so much and blah, blah, blah. And that literally you have to recognize as a trap again. You see what I mean? Like, just keep redirecting your attention. Use this as a meditation. This is more of an active meditation. So you start to become aware of your mind and become aware of what your mind is doing and where your mind is going. And then choose to redirect your attention in your mind back to things that make you feel better rather than things that make you feel worse. So even if it's somebody, and this is very difficult for a lot of people to do, especially when it's like a very harsh breakup, but if you're able to see them as being love, then, and you send them love, then you actually depolarize them and you cause them to disconnect from you. So if you're able to do that, then that's probably the most effective way to be able to dissolve the karma that's happening between the two of you. But if you're not able to do that, then it's best to just disconnect your energy completely from them by taking your attention off of them whenever it comes up. Now, you're gonna see that if it's something that's very fresh or very powerful for you, then that energy is gonna keep recycling and keep coming up over and over again. But the more that you disconnect your energy and redirect your attention back to love or back to something else that makes you feel better, anything really, like anything that makes you feel better. For me, I sing Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, and then that makes me feel better, and so I redirect my attention back to that over and over again. Or Jai Siya Ram, Hanuman, or like any of these different kinds of these mantras, and I do this just so that I can redirect my attention back to something that brings me a sense of love. And you'll recognize how powerful that is, because you'll see that once you start to learn how to direct your attention correctly, and what I mean by correctly is to just be able to recognize where your attention is going and then pull it in and focus it into one thing at a time. Then you'll notice that one thing, like if you're able to focus your attention directly to love, then that direct focus of attention will actually cause you to pull love and only love to you. And then you'll start to experience more and more love rather than more and more of other stuff. And the whole world will keep going on with whatever it's going on, meaning like it can be in its negative vibration. There could be like 80% of the population could be in a negative vibration, but you will sit in a state of love all the time, because you've learned how to disconnect your attention from everything else around you and redirect your attention directly to the feeling of love. And if you can't direct it exactly to the feeling of love, then feel into a past event that you've had where you felt the most loving that you've ever felt in your entire life, and then let go of the story of how that happened. So you can use the story to bring up the feeling, but then let go of the story and then just keep your attention on that feeling of love, and try to keep it on that feeling and meditate by literally redirecting your attention to that feeling of love, and just try to keep it there, like as long as you possibly can. And literally, like, it's gonna feel really weird to you because your logical mind's gonna